dear friends. Welcome back to the Pearl Dialogues. My name is Wazee, and together with Elin, I host this podcast. Here we explore the nature of reality through the lens of the diamond approach. This is a student-led initiative, and it's also hosted by the youth council of this school. If you're unfamiliar or new to this work, you can check out the descriptions in our show notes, where we have an intro to the diamond approach and also other resources. In today's episode, we converse with Anne-Marie in London, and what we explore is parenting, being a parent while also doing spiritual work. We also talk about the superego and how to deal with the superego and what significance it can give to our lives and our freedom doing that work. Anne-Marie is also very passionate about inclusivity when it comes to ethnicity, different types of backgrounds. So that's also something we talk about. It's a very lovely conversation in my experience. One thing I want to say is, for those of you who have listened to several episodes and feel moved to give us some feedback about your experience, there is a Google form in our show notes, and I would be happy to hear from you. As always, I invite you to sense your arms and legs while listening. That's all I have to say. Much love.
For me, the teaching is about including everything. And therefore, the freedom is when there is space for everyone too. So I notice, and my work is very much in the world, so part of my love, my main love of the diamond approach is straddling this being in the world, but not of the world. That for me is so. Inclusivity and diversity is just become more and more the bedrock of my spiritual awakening. Actually, it's not separate. It started in my Irish roots in campaigning around, the Ireland I grew up in was quite conservative. So it campaigning around women's rights and autonomy. And then kind of now my work as a body psychotherapist is about intersectionality, working with the body and intersectionality. So I have a deep passion for that understanding. And I think it's really important as part of our waking up that we're looking, including as part of our pearl development, places where we're not awake, and what that means, as a white woman, as an older woman, as a mother, and I'm particularly influenced personally. And I think my eldest daughter is very disabled, but she's also my red thread to the work. She's the kind of some combination of working with the feelings is exactly why I'm here. So, I think that's a short-ish explanation of the threads that have come. And then you open this thread around disability, and then you think, oh, what about race? What about class? What about, whiteness in the school? But it is all coming from a deep belief in including everything at the root of the teaching.
How does that resonate in you, Eileen?
Yeah, I like what you're saying. Anne-Marie is touching me. I also feel sadness for when you talked about the story of Ireland and women's rights. And I mean, I'm very young, but it's still, I still know a bit about it, how it was, and it's like I could feel this important journey of being more allowing, more inclusive. For example, not taking kids away from their mothers just because they're deemed unworthy in the eyes of the church, for example, and all that things that happened. And so that was what started to echo in me when you spoke, and I think about how important the work is to kind of face injustice in a way.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I feel it in my chest. It's like, yeah, it is very sad, and it's also very real, and it's very important, and it's not entirely comfortable.
Wazee?
Yeah, what I'm currently reading the biography about Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
I'm reading about the apartheid in South Africa, and I've been studying the Second World War recently and the 20th century. So I can relate to this in my own way. I was fortunate enough, although I grew up in an environment where I was surrounded by primarily, more or less only white people, because I grew up in Norway, some 30, 40 minutes outside of Oslo. But fortunately, I was never plagued by racism. So although I have a skin color that is brown, I don't feel that I'm traumatized in the same way that a lot of people of color, for example, are, particularly in the United States or in countries that has experienced slavery in particular, where there is this inferiority, superiority dynamics playing out and institutionalized discrimination, where the flow of resources are very much flowing into one race and one category of human beings, while others receive next to nothing and are exploited. So this topic of actually living for or contributing in that direction of justice and true equality and heart is something I burn for, actually. So I notice in me a sense of both an expansion and a sense of dedication to that cause.
Yeah. And I feel like from my own experience, the work changes us and opens us and brings a different understanding. But also there is a deep spirituality in Ireland. I want to include that. And actually there has been a huge shift, huge shift, which hasn't happened in many European countries, huge shift in terms of just women's rights, abortion, gay marriage. And so that there has been a real working of the split between the church on some level. There's still a lot of problems, but there is something coming forward as well. That's inspiring. And that's the generation after me that are responsible for that.
Do you feel a sense of optimism there?
I do, it's sort of, and I believe that, the development within our school, within Ridwan, is also, there's movements happening that feel important, being on, it's it's a slow process, but it's important. I'm also part of, you probably have heard of EC, Inclusive Cultural Inquiry, where students are coming together every month in the school to look at these issues, to include them in their practice, to include that in the understanding, in the unfoldment of the teaching. So I do feel some optimism in this moment.
Yeah, I have a burning curiosity here. So to some extent, and to a large extent, we're talking about prejudice and also judgment. And I'm wondering, and clearly this is something we can observe in the course in History of Humanity. And I'm wondering, in your own personal journey, have you confronted some of your own prejudice and your own judgment on this journey of transformation and in this exploration of the theme of inclusivity? Could you share on that?
Yeah, it starts with me. It has to start with me, so that's what the teaching is about at its core. And I think because of my work, there is, it's a big story that, there's, when you're in Ireland, there was very little understanding of difference to do with skin color, because a bit like it was very homogenous. It was Catholic white. That's what I grew up with. Yeah. So there wasn't much difference. So, really working on and seeing, took me quite a journey to open to how I am as a white person. It took a long time to understand that. Just subtly, I like the power of it that's there, that's in the colonial journey. I didn't even realize that I held it in my body, so it's like the white body supremacy in my body, how my whiteness, I would say I've done a lot of work around that, how my whiteness ambushes, and, and learned through good challenge, to come to my belly and to feel that and to work that material, and use the resources outside of the school to work that material. But yeah, also around disability, we're so conditioned towards a normative body. So it's hard. We don't even notice how we are opting towards that. And then what does that mean? What are we not including? So it's been a long journey. And for me, it's like part of it's like I have to kind of feel it from the inside. And that's one of the things that the school has really taught me, is to, there is heart here. I can feel the heart in our field right now, the tenderness, the soreness, but also to develop my belly and the courage to and the confidence to dare to speak, to dare to look at my side and to speak. Yeah. And curiosity. So for me, the big development has been, I call it the 3 C's, the compassion, the curiosity, and the courage, and feeling that in an embodied way. That's what I feel. So. But it's sweaty work. it's tense work. It's painful work. It's like, oh gosh, yeah. There's work here. There's unconscious bias here. And what does that mean then for my realization? Because that's the thing, that's what Amid is encouraging us. It's not a political school, it's a freedom school. So it's like holding that tension.
Yeah.
Could you repeat those 3 C's again?
Compassion from the heart. Yeah.
Mm.
And then
compassion,
and courage, the courage to, come forward, the confidence, the courage of the belly, and then the curiosity of the head. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, really.
Compassion, courage, curiosity.
Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah, that's a really good like stairway to remember it.
Yeah. And needing, like, you know, I think I just did have some access to my heart from, you know, childhood, from also pain, from, you know, difficulty. But to get courage, that was the thing, to access it from the inside. Yeah. Then I could get curious. But if they're not in tandem, it's hard, isn't it? And the diamond approach, I would say, is the school that really opened that doorways for me. You know, yes, I am a therapist. I have trained as a therapist. You know, I have all that history, but the actual integration of the embodiment has come from the diamond approach. You know, the embodiment that then leads to a sort of being in the world in a different way.
And for you, was it any particular element of the diamond approach that facilitated for that embodiment?
Well, I think what it was that in terms of, you know, what attracted me to the diamond approach was, so I'm quite in the world. So it was, I'd see these people and I think, oh, you're kind of interesting. I like your openness. I'm curious about you. And then I would kept finding out, oh, they're studying the diamond approach. So that was how I kind of came in. I came in from this kind of, oh, I'm interested here. But your question about what was your question again about what developed that?
So yeah, what particular element of the diamond approach developed that? Because what I'm thinking of is the methodology that includes meditation, inquiry, sensing practice. You also have the teachings that can open into insight and understanding. It can be a combination, obviously, of these different elements. Usually it is. So I was wondering if there is any particular facet or element of the teaching that you felt
Inquiry, you know, just inquiry was the calling, really, the calling to inquire, the learning to crawl inside my experience and stay located in my actual experience. And then that developed the kind of sensing practice and the belly practice, you know. But the sort of interest was the inquiry, you know, the wanting to understand in an embodied way where I needed to go, you know, what I needed to look at, you know, what was blocking me, you know. I'm always interested in that part, and then that opens me. You know, then that opens me, you know, so.
Yeah, crawl inside your experience. I liked how you put that. It was such a transmission of embodiment right there, I feel. How did it touch you, Eileen?
Yeah, I was like, oh yes. Oh yes. Let's do it. Like, what is the block? And I was just like, oh, I just felt a burst of I want to do inquiry about my blocks. Wonderful.
Yeah. And you know, we had amazing teaching in our seminary to really support that as well. You know, that I think that phrase came from a teaching somewhere. Can you crawl inside your experience? You know, and I was like, oh, that got me. You know, it stayed in me. You know.
Yeah. So maybe we can talk a little bit about the process of actually digesting and crawling into our experience in everyday life. Because one thing that is clear to me in my own experience is that actually working with our psyche and making our unconscious conscious and actually working through the raw material in our psychology is is a challenging and can be a very difficult thing to do. And I know in my life, I've been fortunate enough to have times where I've had a lot of space with few demands so that I could dedicate a lot of my attention to my own inner processes, and also having access to nature so that I could take contemplative walks, introduction to meditation. And I'm currently working at a school with sixth graders. And that is an extremely challenging environment to be in, I must say. I generally come home and I'm exhausted from being in that space. I think that's connected to the institution of the school and the rigidity that I experienced there, and how so much of the energy in the children is actually repressed systematically over many years of being in that system. So I just wanted to talk a little bit, because it's such an important part of spiritual development and human maturation. And I know that within the current theme or current spiritual lingo, we talk about waking up, growing up, and showing up, where waking up is a part of the awakening to our true nature and consciousness and essence and so forth, while the growing up has a lot to do with emotional development and relational development. Do you have any thoughts on that process? And
Yeah, I mean, I think the flame comes through in my location, the flame is kind of fueled by also wanting to understand the psychodynamics and how they are embodied. Like, that's the beauty of, I think, the diamond approach, that it's not a transcendent path. It's a path in the world. So that called me. But what is also important about it is that it is a big commitment. Like, it's life-changing. So you might have, you already have lots of life-changing experiences, but the maturing in it is that kind of ongoing setting back. Like, Mead talks about the pearl development, it's a development. It's not, it takes time. So I think that is the attraction for me about the diamond approach. I just relaxed then. I thought, okay, I don't have to rush here. It's going to unfold. But that's also a big commitment. That's also a big commitment. Yeah. So it's, but I like the calling of it, the calling of that way of being in the world. And yeah, I get the stress. It does take time. But I think as you get more space, things don't take as much out of you. That's what I notice. So, my work is particularly stressful. It's particularly stressful, my work outside the diamond approach. But now it's like the support of the teaching and the sitting back and the guidance that comes through from the sitting back actually means that there is more ease. Deals with the anxiety, the issues, all of that is more ease. And yeah, can manage to live a fairly big life with more ease. That's what I think it's really taught me.
I'm thinking a little bit about what I feel the teaching is kind of showing me right now. Do you want me to share?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I'm currently going through a separation with the father of my child, and there are so many different layers in this process that I'm observing. And one thing that I noticed, which I'm particularly, I don't know if I would say proud, but that I'm like it's okay, we can do this, is one sensation, one part of my ego or my fear or it's an inner child that wasn't safe enough. The part of heartache when you know that this relationship isn't really working anymore. But when I was younger, I had 2 relationships in mind. I really wanted to make them work. I wanted to fix it. So I would do it for many, many months. But this suffering would be there. And this time, since I've been doing my inner work now for a couple of years, I didn't go into I need to fix it to get this pain away.
Yeah.
I went into, okay, this obviously isn't working.
Yeah.
And it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to try to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And that little part of me that before had this very important job of keeping the relationship together, the little fixer,
Yeah.
it doesn't have a job anymore.
Yeah.
But I feel I'm laughing when I'm saying it. It's I mean, it's a bit humorous, but also there's this like freedom. Oh yes, like no, I'm just gonna sit here and let it happen.
Yeah. Yeah, the difference between the suffering and the pain. So there's suffering in the trying to make it happen, keep it going. And then there's just the pain, the heartache. And if we can sit and just allow the pain, it passes. It's a wave. It's
Yeah.
a wave.
And what also supported me, I think it's written in Diamond Heart, Book 1, The Real Elements of Man, about love. That my understanding of love since being in the school has changed. When I was younger, you're kind of fed in the media that, you're being loved by someone. Someone else comes and loves you, and therefore you feel loved. You feel value, you feel specialness. And my understanding now is more like, no, it's my own love that I am like projecting on the other person and experiencing. And then as well, I don't have this terrifying fear of that I'm never gonna be loved again because I'm already loving myself. It's me. I'm doing the job, and there's this I would say a big trust. I feel a trust talking about it now, and calmness, and like you said, being able to live bigger and easier, like to fully live. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's supporting you, the teaching right now in this difficult time.
Yeah. Every waking hour, observing, sitting, grounding, feeling the cat point.
Coming back when you don't,
Yeah. Oops. Realizing I'm about to run away. Okay, sit down. Sit down. Yeah.
Do you have any particular journeys, Anne-Marie, that you found challenging during your time of being a Diamond Approach student that you could share upon and how you went through that?
I definitely have had my fair share of trauma in my life. But it's with the combination of therapy and the Diamond Approach that I feel there was a metabolizing and a digestion. But the one thing that is coming very strongly when is the work with the judge, really. I think that, I know I was really under attack from my superego most of my life on some level. Some of the noise, I'd be doing something, but it was, so for me, the teaching on really having a support to actually the practice of disengaging from the superego, that has been revelatory in my life. quietening the noise, quietening the, so that, and there's been a constant work on that for me, as a sort of like wanting the superego that wants to cap my aliveness, that tells me you're this, you're that, you're too much this way, too much that way. That was a real player and keeping me out of my body, actually, and out of my calf. Because, really, when we're in our calf, it's quieter in our head and the judge is quieter, when we're sitting back here. But for me, that was really, really changed my inner landscape, the work on the judge. And that was slow. It was slow to really face, to really grapple with, to sort of see how it was like this kind of silent, abusive relationship that was kind of inside me, that was telling me I was bad or weak or wrong. So really disengaging from that is so important in the work, so important for students, so important because it blocks presence, it really blocks presence. So that's, I would say, it was a really big challenge. And then suddenly it became less of a challenge. It's quite simple at a certain point, and you're like, something clicked a bit and it lost some grip. But it took a lot of work, and it'll still come, that will still come, that voice. So I just think it's amazing contribution, the work on the inner critic, to our realization, to our development. And it's very specific in the school. That's one of the things I love about the teaching, is the specificity of it, like it's kind of, it goes in and you kind of work it. Whereas, in other trainings or other situations, you think, oh, I've got a judge or an inner critic, but there's no kind of map of how to work with it. So I love the map of how to work with it that the Dime approach has given me and my teachers have given me.
Did you also read the book Soul Without Shame by Byron Brown?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Again and again.
So for anyone listening, there's a book on the superego written by Byron Brown, if you wanted to check that out, that lays it out quite clearly, and with certain practices and methods for disengaging the inner critic. And what comes up for me when we speak about this is the reclaiming the true inner authority of oneself from the superego, from the inner critic, and then reclaiming that inner authority so that one can stay grounded in one's experience, as opposed to being pulled out by this coercive agent.
That pulls you to the external.
Yeah.
Pulls us out, or takes, or stops us breathing in our body. So we tighten and we stop breathing, and we don't even realize, what's happened. And you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. So important that the work on the judge, on the inner critic. Yeah. And I also feel that it, like when you say about reading Byron Brown, it's like we need, because there's a relentlessness in the structure, we need to be practicing, like there's a few teachings that I have listened to. I would say I had a particular teaching on, like, again and again and again and again and again, to help me metabolize on a kind of deeper way how to manage here, because it goes on and on. So our practice needs to be as resolute in the disengaging, because then you've got the superego of your superego, and you've got a kind of, it's just an orchestra that goes on, and it gets very subtle.
It gets very subtle. And bringing in the subtleties, one thing I've noticed for me to be a part or a segment of the subtlety is the positive remarks, right? The clap on the shoulder. You did a good job. Come on, you're awesome. Which can also pull you towards the surface. And I've been thinking about this because when I exercise and in certain situation, I have this internal coach that is connected to the archetypical athlete, like the athletic part of my being that is very geared towards performing well in different activities. I had it in my childhood as well. So recently, or actually over the last couple of years, I've been more acutely wanting to be aware of that part of me and also working with it, which is its own challenge, I would say, because it has a different flavor than the critic that judges you and pushes you down, where you feel incredibly deficient and wrong and just contract on intensely.
Exactly. And remembering whenever we're comparing or evaluating, we're in the territory of the inner critic. Like evaluate, and we're doing that all the time, you know. Am I speaking clearly now? Are you speaking clearly? You know, it's here, you know, it's with us. So it's to get rigorous around it. But I feel excited about working with the judge, and I love working with students with the inner critic and finding, you know, kind of different ways. And you can't just go one way. Sometimes it needs kindness. Sometimes it's, you know, kindness is so important. You know, understanding, you know, movement. That's another way of working with the judge. You know, like being really creative in our ways of working with disengaging, you know, noticing it comes when you've often, in my experience, if I've really opened and I've kind of let go and I'm in this sort of, you know, boundlessness is around and I'm experiencing love, and then it comes, you know. It's like learning that oh, there's expansion and contraction, and that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, I also learned from one of my teachers that when you're doing something, you know, expanding your spiritual self or whatever in that line of out, then you can come to expect it. You know, I can come to expect the superego coming and saying like, or the inner critic, the very stern coach trying to get you back into the previous status quo. And that helped me a lot as well. And I think she said something like, if it's like standing there and holding the bars like you're in a prison, really shaking them, trying to scare you back, then you know you're going the right way.
Yeah, it's true.
One thing I thought or feel moved to touch on, both of you are parents, and I know that you, Anne-Marie, you have 3 children, if I heard you correctly, and Elin, you have a son of 3.5. And could you share a little bit about on your journey of being in the parent and doing this work, Anne-Marie?
Well, it's like where the rubber hits the road, you know, like where, you know, that expression, the rubber hits the road, where it's like the nitty gritty. It's like, that's where it is for me. It's like, it's challenging being in the work and being a parent. Like, you know, it was very challenging my kids were very little when I was in the school in the beginning. And like, you know, it meant that I chose a group that was more weekend based because I couldn't leave them for so long, you know. So there was a difference. So I was which meant I was kind of dipping in and out of the teaching. It was really practicing being with the teaching, then back in my life, being with the teaching back in my life. And, you know, coming back from, you know, I would be traveling and coming back, and then, you know, my kids having missed me. And of course they don't want to be, they're happy to see you, but they're also, fed up with you for leaving them. So you're managing that. You're managing, developmental issues, whilst you're also working on your own development. So that's that can be a thread. It can also really help that you've got the capacity to be curious and to practice. Sometimes it's just hard. So that's how I found it. It was, there were a few times that I remember my home retreat used to be around the time of my twin's birthday, and that was really hard. Having to juggle and decide, and my passion for the teaching was very strong. My flame, my wanting to be immersed in the teaching has always been very strong, So, just kind of managing that, navigating. Yeah, I think it's hard. And I know it's harder for some people than it was for me. Some of my friends had difficult experiences. Yeah. Don't know, Ellen, how you're managing it.
Me neither. highest am, I guess. But yeah, being away for like 8 days, it becomes actually with the travel is quite long.
Yeah.
But I saw there's different groups now, it's like weekend groups and online groups. So there's options. But I think for me as a mother, being aware of his essence and that I don't want to suffocate that. That is something that's supporting that, like, I don't have to be right all the time, which I would rather see. Like, that is the pattern in my family and how you kind of raise kids, I think.
Yeah.
And also is the fact that I know, like, if I practice patience, for example, if I practice that, then it becomes better, more enjoyable, and easier.
Yeah.
So there are, I mean, I started my spiritual journey for real. It feels just a couple of months before I got pregnant, maybe 2 months, 3 months. So for me, I knew I was going to bring the teaching in my in my parental journey. Like, I called my baby the Zen baby because I was a lot into Zen then. But it was like, yeah, this is my Zen baby and this is what we're gonna do.
And a lot of my personal inquiries in the beginning were really focused around issues coming up to do with my children, to do with birth, to do with, so there was something very potent and personal about them. They were very key in my development. I remember, definitely felt that my eldest was like, how to articulate it. It was like I had to inquire to find me, to be. I had to inquire. And so therefore then I actually was closer to her. And there was something about being, she doesn't speak. So being with her, without words, that the inquiry process and the embodiment of the teaching really supported me with, yeah. And the mystery of her. It's kind of like a gateway to the mystery. Like our children are gateways to the mystery as well. When we're learning about the pearl and individuation and contact, and we're birthing our pearl, and our kids are also doing their developmental journey, it can be very touching.
Also, and I also noticed for me, it's can also be like a source of, I would say the opposite, but my insecurity, or like seeing my lackings, seeing my failing. so clear, because I'm present for it and being like, okay, I'm not doing this in a way which feels really good. It hurts to talk about. Like, I think it's called a mom shame or just parent shame in general.
Yeah. It needs such kindness, doesn't it?
Yeah. But it was a great motivation for me, because I have a responsibility now, not just to myself. Like before, I felt with the teaching, now I feel more a responsibility towards me and my journey in the world. But in the beginning, it was really my son. It was like, okay, I have a responsibility, this soul, and therefore also it became so important. Like, I need to work on myself because I want to give him the best life possible. Yeah, and that's still true, even if it's not the like, this isn't why I'm doing it 100% anymore. It has like evolved from that.
So you got two moms speaking there, Wazee.
Yeah. I'm functioning a little bit like a mom myself when I work in school, to be fair, and so I can relate to a lot what you're sharing. Recently, particularly this last weeks, I took over, or I've been stepped into a sixth grader, so 11-year-old class, and just for 2 weeks, I'm a substitute teacher in that class. And I just feel, to be fair, that the last couple of days I've just been feeling, I'm not managing this. I'm not able to hold this, actually. And yeah, that has been a process to work through. It's been it was a challenging class. So when I got the prompt that, they needed someone who particular to take over the class, and with the circumstances and my skills and capacities, I wouldn't say that I'm succeeding. I wouldn't say that I'm succeeding, actually.
Yet.
Yet. Now, I genuinely think that I don't have I don't think that I will be able to serve them the way they need in the long run. So
sometimes you have to be objective about
that. I'm not cut out for that. It's not my path long term, and also it requires, what I see and what I wish for any child essentially is to have a teacher that is passionate and burns for that profession as their purpose, as their dharma. And my purpose and dharma is much more linked to this type of work. So I step in there with everything that I have, but I'm not their primary school teacher. So there is a lot of complexity that goes with that. There is a lot of complexity. But I just wanted to add that, personally, how I can relate to what we're talking about.
And I've been a teacher. I was a teacher before, a secondary school teacher, and now I teach psychotherapy trainees to be therapists, and now, recently I'm a Ridwan teacher. So teaching is very, in different threads, very much part of my my life, in my calling. But when I was listening to you, Ellen, what I was thinking is that one of the real gifts for me about the Diamond approach has been understanding things like anger, and like understanding that, it's normally a little one who's really angry. And if you allow the energy and not the content, the strength comes and the aliveness comes. So there's a way that the teaching has held me, like under, the latifa, understanding them has helped me be in the kind of maelstrom of both at times teaching when it's really difficult, and parenting when it's really difficult. Getting to the source of the essence, as you were saying, the essence of it. But It's really helped me. Whereas I think if I hadn't had the teaching, and then, I was kind of, for a long time, I would shy away from anger, oh no, that rather than be with it, be with the strength, be with the aliveness.
Yeah, that's a nugget of wisdom right there. Allow the energy without getting sucked into the content. So that level of embodiment, that's a deep practice. That's a very deep practice that will expand the soul's capacity to both be with in presence, and also expand the soul in that power and that actualization.
It's like the fundamental of the work on the latifa, isn't it? The transformation of the energy. The hatred transformation, transforming into power, anger into strength. Like it's amazing. That can really change the world.
True.
Yeah, so.
I enjoy the field we are having here tonight. We said it in the beginning, but there's a depth and a gentleness, and it's soft, very calm, but also very, very here and now for me. What is it like for the two of you?
I want to bring in also the passion that I feel. And Anne-Marie, I really feel you in your passion for this work coming through in such a beautiful and potent way, and the emphasis on embodiment. So I feel this both this tree extending upwards, but also the earth, the rootedness in the earth, and that communicates through your whole being in what you share. And I also feel your heart, that there's such a genuine caring for humanity, and again, genuine love for the work that I feel coming through, and all these aspects that we're mentioning, both the love, the gentleness, and we have the depth, and then also the vigor, the courage, and the passion, in a very beautiful combination that I feel creates this well-rounded field of richness.
Yeah, I feel that the diamond approach has let me have my passion. I think my passion was capped. My love was capped. And I don't feel that. So I feel very passionate and heartful, but it's more grounded now. So it's more, I don't have to go out there so much anymore. It's here, it's here. And, also to sit back and be in the mystery and the aloneness. But I do feel the field, the heart, between us as we're sharing. So it's pleasurable, actually, to sit with you both. Warm, like it's a little, my temperatures are also a bit warm, like potent stuff.
When you say that, what comes up for me is actually that warmth is, I feel it's linked to a particular type of warmth, which is the warmth of inclusivity. It brings me back to what you shared in the beginning, how you really appreciate the diversity in the space, both me and my heritage, and then also Aileen being a mother, and we have different generations of age here. So I feel the warmth of that inclusivity as we speak, and I also feel the pleasure of, I could just sit here in silence, stillness, and just enjoy and explore. We're not doing that first and foremost because there is a whole engagement happening here, but that's something I really love to do. So the silences we have here, I'm now also speaking to the audience. I mean, that's really a time for relaxation in my experience of it, and just both inquiry and sensitivity, and simply sensing what's happening, what's alive in my body, what's alive in the field, what's alive in my environment, what's going on in my consciousness, and just openly discovering the moment without any agenda or need to do or interfere or change or produce, but just this open receptivity.
Yeah.
There's something comfortable in the silence. There's a lot of heart in it. It's like, yeah. I think because of the things you just mentioned, Wazee, it also feels such privilege comes to the word privilege comes to mind for me, to sit here with the two of you, just being and exploring, but also just being, and the quality of that. It amazes me as well. I mean, we're in 3 different countries. It's over Zoom, but still, there's this field, and yeah, very, very enjoyable.
Yeah, I
feel
saw
the
that
silence. Oh, sorry, go on.
Go on.
Just saying, I feel the silence. I feel the heat and the warmth. I feel the warmth and the love. The meeting in the love. And I feel that paradox of also the passion. I think you asked for a piece of music, and I set quite a passionate song because it's sort of like both are true: the silence, the stillness, the quiet, and the passion. That's what I feel, both.
And that was just what I was going to say. The thing is, due to the copyright issues, we're not longer having songs on the podcast, unfortunately. So yeah, that's just how it is.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I enjoy choosing it anyway.
Yeah, and what I will do is in the show notes, I'll upload the song so that anyone listening can listen to the song after the podcast if they feel moved.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I have the link.
Will I say anything about it?
If you want to.
Just a tiny bit. So it's called Nina Cries Power. And why I chose it is because it's by Hosier, who is an Irish artist. So and it's based on, the civil rights movement. Like, he's calling the names of the important people in the American civil rights movement. And there's this Mabel who's singing, this Black woman. And so for me, it's like a marriage of my kind of roots of including and abiding.
Thank you for that.
I want to listen to the song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That power. Really, we're really sitting with the power to be right now.
Mm. Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, what a joy to meet you, Anna Marie, and so beautiful as always, Aileen, to co-create this with you.
Mm.
And
You
such
too,
a
Wazee.
unique, deep wisdom that's come through today, Anna Marie. I truly appreciate your pearly expression and everything you bring to the school and to this field. So I feel a sense of gratitude in my heart for this conversation, and I'm very happy to have met you in this way, in this personal way.
Yeah, I feel really happy to have met you both and to be on this journey together in this deep teaching.
Yeah.
Yeah, I look forward to sharing it with the world.
Yeah, it will
And
go
whoever
out.
it may touch. Yeah.
Exactly. And if
Mm.
anyone feels moved, can they contact you, Anne Marie,
Sure.
for sessions and stuff like this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm based in London, and I'm one of the assistant teachers in the Diamond Heart UK group, which is a London mixture of Zoom and in-person group. So yeah, like an email.
Wonderful.
And that group is still open. Is it the newest
It's still
group?
open, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, wonderful. Thank you to all the listeners who tuned in. And as always, much love.